don't know who needs to hear this, but Alex Uballez is full of it. I saw this video for the first time yesterday, and I've not been able to get it out of my head because it was so ridiculous. But let's break that down.
What the numbers show, for the only time in the past 10 years in New Mexico, according to CDC data, that overdoses have fallen was during my tenure as United States Attorney, May of 22 to February of 25.
Okay, let's start with that claim right there. By the time Uballez started on May 22nd, 2022, the rolling 12-month count had already started to decline. It peaked at 1089 in March, it fell to 1067 in April, and it dropped to 1046 in May.
I feel entirely vindicated by the CDC numbers. I don't know if you usually put up graphics, but like this is one worth putting up.
Yeah, I look into it.
There is a dramatic, it's a 24%, and if you chart out right where I was United States Attorney, it's the only thing that overlaps 100% with the decline in overdoses here.
It's important to understand that the only way that overdose deaths are recorded is on a rolling 12-month basis. In other words, there's no way to know exactly what the numbers were for a given month, at least not from the CDC data that's published. You can only see what the total was for the past 12 months. Each month, the 12th month drops off, a new month is added on. Those are the numbers that you get. In other words, there is nothing that Alex Uballez did when he came into office that led to the beginning of the decline. Those numbers were already on the way down.
The tragic thing, as you mentioned, is there has been an increase. Since I was fired from that job in February of last year, all of that hard work for 3 years that we did to drive down that overdose number was undone in a matter of months.
Now remember, this is a rolling total. So if in a matter of months the numbers went up significantly, that includes the entire year before that he was U.S. Attorney. That rise started at the beginning of 2025, before he was fired, and they climbed from January to February to March. So again, rolling 12-month total, and it was entirely from Uballez's term, and clearly unrelated to his later dismissal.
Why have our leaders failed us? Why have they allowed the spike to happen?
The numbers nationwide were on the decline since August 2023. So at the same time that those numbers were going down, New Mexico's numbers started to get higher and higher. So what happened in 2024? Well, that's when agents and prosecutors first became aware of this very large ring waiting and not seizing fentanyl.
And this strategy of, I guess, catching the bigger fish, do you think there's a certain way that, like, how did that whole thing go about? How does that work?
We were trying something that all the studies and the data says works, but we hadn't tried here yet. A blueprint for how we save lives going forward. We were excellent at running these proactive criminal investigations.
So let's talk about this getting the bigger fish strategy. This strategy only saves lives if you ultimately take down the trafficking ring. There is no major prosecution that Uballez can point to other than Heriberto Salazar Amaya, who was arrested in May of 2025. Other than that, this whole strategy he's talking about of finding the bigger fish, there's no evidence of that.
As you saw, they led to the largest seizure of fentanyl in the history of the United States.
That was massive. 3
million pills. That was an investigation we launched under my administration.
Heriberto Salazar Amaya, who was arrested in May of 2025. In the 6 months before then, one DEA supervisor has said that they were allowing that much, 3 million, to go every month for 6 months when they could have taken it down. That's potentially 18 million pills. So is it a surprise that even as the United States numbers were declining, by not taking down that bigger fish sooner, there's going to be a rise in fentanyl overdoses, there's going to be a huge number of deaths, when a huge spike in fentanyl source is out there on the streets? Of course that's not a surprise. That's what we should be asking hard questions about.
We need more from our leaders, and we need to demand more from our leaders, answers to why they're letting this spike happen since I was fired. And folks should be asking questions. We should be demanding answers. The litmus test for your leaders should be, show us how you are saving lives. Folks who are suffering and on these streets and dying, right? By the hundreds since I left, right? These numbers have shot up 21%, I think our AP article cited, since I was fired. That is devastating. Every one of those, one pill, one life is too many. And the hundreds that these people have allowed.
The former U.S. attorney has made it perfectly clear that he thinks it's fine and that tried to reinvent himself as a public health expert. I think New Mexicans should be very upset about that.
I will talk to anyone who has questions.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't benefit me,
Yeah.
even if it's only risk.
Yeah.
Uballez declined to sit down with us and answer our questions on camera. Four Investigates was trying to get some answers from him. We even sent that statement to him. He didn't respond.
And so it's the job of every public official to come and answer the questions and answer them directly at every time, even when it's at risk to them. Right? Even when the answer might not be great, because just as I have lived my life as a public servant, those who share the message and ask the questions are also public servants.
Yeah.
The service that you provide is a cornerstone and a foundation to democracy.